Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This video is going to be a little bit on the different side, maybe a little essay-y, but I wanted to start a new video series where every year I talk about the top books that I read the previous year. This was originally going to be, Sarah's top 5 picks of 2024, but in reality I only read like 3 books last year. So instead, this will just be me telling you about those 3 books that I read. But I started this idea because I was like, hey, so at least, be incentive to get me to read more, so here we go. I'm already off to a great start. I'm already halfway through another book, so. But yeah, so this is my top 3 books of 2024, I guess. I'm going to start off with the first book I read, which was this one, The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, which actually came out last year. And here, I'll just read you the synopsis of the book. Lights, camera, lies. 18-year-old Belle has lived her whole life in the shadow of her mom's mysterious disappearance. 16 years ago, Rachel Price vanished, and young Belle was the only witness, but she has no memory of it. Rachel is gone, long presumed dead, and Belle wishes everyone would just move on. But the case is dragged up from the past when the Price family agrees to a true crime documentary. Belle can't wait for filming to end, for life to go back to normal. And then the impossible happens. Rachel Price reappears, and life will never be normal again. Rachel has an unbelievable story about what happened to her. Unbelievable because Belle isn't sure that's real. If Rachel is lying, then where has she been all this time? And could she be dangerous? With the cameras still rolling, Belle must uncover the truth about her mother and find out why Rachel Price really came back from the dead. That's basically what the book's about, in so many words. But I guess my notes on the book are, Holly Jackson writes true crime mystery series, or books in general. So if you're into the true crime stuff, you would love her books, just in general. But the thing with this book is that it has kind of a slow startup. So there's like a really long build-up, and it feels really slow. I almost had a hard time finishing the book. That's why it took me like 6 months to finish it. But then the last 5-6 chapters is where all of the interesting stuff happens. There's 3 different plot twists at the end. We find out what really happened to Rachel, which I don't want to spoil anything, but it's probably not what you would expect. But if you're fine with waiting through the slow startup to about halfway through the book, that's when it finally starts to pick up. And if you can hold out that long, then I would recommend this book for you. Also, if you like true crime stories, I would also recommend this book for you. Let's see, what else did I write down? I wrote all my notes on my phone, but basically the first couple chapters, Rachel doesn't reappear until chapter 3. So the first 2 chapters are basically all the introduction of these characters, and we're getting introduced to Belle, her dad, her aunt, cousin, I believe also her grandpa is introduced in the first couple chapters, and then as well as the camera crew with this documentary that they're making. So it's basically the first 2 chapters. In the 3rd chapter, Rachel Price reappears, and then this is when we kind of start to get a picture of what might have happened to her. But yeah, that's all I got on that book. Let's see. All right. Another book I read was this book, Girl in Pieces, by Kathleen Glasgow. So this book is, again, gonna read the synopsis off the back of the book. You can spot the girls who have it easy, and then there is me. Charlotte Davis is in pieces. At 17, she's already lost more than most people do in a lifetime, but she's learned how to forget. The broken glass washes away the sorrow until there's nothing but calm. You don't have to think about your father and the river, your best friend, who is gone forever, or your mother, who has nothing left to give you. Every new scar hardens Charlie's heart just a little more, yet it still hurts so much. It hurts enough to not care anymore, which is sometimes what has to happen before you can find your way back from the edge. So this is a book that so I'm trying to think of like the main themes of it. So it's a book that has a lot of heavy subject in it, like, you know, homelessness, drug abuse, all that type of stuff. But it also is kind of like hopeful in a way where it's about a girl who is literally at rock bottom. Like, you can't get any lower, and she somehow finds a way to make a life for herself. This book is also not written in the traditional chapter format. It's more so written like diary entries. Like, think like, I mean, it's still in the third person, but it's like written as like small like snippets of like moments of her life throughout like a couple years, you know. So it starts out. I actually like this part because it starts out in Minnesota, you know, where I live. Minnesota rep, let's go. But it starts out with her living in let's see, what is it called? It's like kind of like one of those like I'm trying to think of the name for it. One of those like addiction like houses or whatever, like for like not necessarily like a mental health institution, but it's like kind of like a halfway house almost, kind of that takes in like they take in like I'm trying to think. Like, they take in, like, people struggling with, like, drug abuse and help them overcome addictions and stuff like that. But that's where she starts out, because she was basically kicked out of the house at 16, or I think she was younger than that, actually. But she had to live on the streets for a while. But she met some cool dudes, and then she met some bad dudes. And then she ended up here at this place. And then when she turned 18, she could no longer stay there, because it was, like, a place for, like, teenagers, basically. And, so then she got, you know, she had to leave, and so then she took a Greyhound bus down to Tucson, Arizona, which is actually where the author is from. And that's where the majority of the book takes place. But one thing that I like about this book is that there's like you don't learn anything about the character's backstory directly. Like, everything that you learn about what happened to the characters in the past, you kind of have to infer from like dialogue that's said, like thoughts that the main character has, like talking about their friends from the past or whatever. Like, one example is this character Riley. He like we learn indirectly that he like wait, let me see here. Yeah, we learn that he's a drug addict and an alcoholic, which, you know, are both not very great things, but we also learn that he used to be married at some point, apparently, which is kind of crazy when you kind of know this guy's personality in the story, as kind of like, he seems kind of like a loner in a way. Like, not necessarily a loner, but like, he seems to be somebody who kind of likes his alone time, but also likes to be around other people at the same time. We also learn that he used to be in a band, which is also just brought up in casual conversation. And the one thing that I like about it is, like, that's how you, like, I've taken a lot of creative writing classes because I was going to be a creative writing major, but, like that's how you write a character's backstory. Like, you don't necessarily need a prologue to teach the reader about who this character is, right? And why they are the way that they are. Like, you could have a character that's written that doesn't tell anybody anything about themselves, and that's just who that character is. And they could have another character who tells everybody everything about themselves, and that just kind of showcases their differences in personality. But like we know that like the main character Charlie, we learned that she was in like that for a while when she was like living on the street. She was taken in by this guy who basically was like, basically like I don't know what to make this like YouTube not censoring, right? But like like a bad place for women, if you know what I mean. But then she ended up escaping, ended up this house, and then she made it down to Arizona, and then she was somehow able to afford the crappiest apartment that she could find, and like start a life. And she was able to pick herself back up when she had literally nothing. Like she had like pennies to her name, like she couldn't even afford to buy like toilet paper, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like inspirational how it's like even when you hit rock bottom, you can still find a way to move up. But yeah, that was that story. And then the last one that I read was actually the novel version of Annie, which I read on Amazon Kindle. Because I don't really know why I read it on Amazon Kindle. I think it's because I didn't want to pay the like $15 to get the hard copy, and I was kind of urgently wanting to read it because I have loved the musical like almost my entire life. I got the original movie when I was like for I think like my 12th birthday or Christmas or something. I don't remember exactly, but I got the movie for like holiday. Like a present. It was gifted to me. And then I've seen a live production of Annie like once or twice when I was younger. And then there's actually a little bit of history behind that book because I was doing some research about the musical and I found out that that book was written by the guy who wrote the original play. And he wrote a novel because because the original musical that he wanted to do would have been like 4 hours long, right? Because there was so much that he wanted to put in it, so he ended up having to cut it down to 2 and a half hour Broadway production, because that's generally about how long most Broadway musicals are, is about 2.5 hours or so if you include the intermission. But so he wanted to find a way to include everything else that he wanted to put in the musical but couldn't, and so he wrote the book basically. The book, even though I love the musical, I wasn't really a huge fan of the book because it almost felt like there were two different stories there, right? Like the story that we all know from the musical and the movies and stuff basically is about like the second half of the book. And then the first half of the book feels almost like a completely different story, right? Because basically, like, we all know, like, the second half is, like, when she goes to live with Mr. Warbucks and all that type of stuff, right? And the first half, she runs away from the orphanage, and she ends up, helping this couple, like, wash dishes at their, like, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was, like, kind of like a restaurant almost, not really, but kind of, right? And they gave her a room down by the boiler and let her wash dishes, right? And gave her meals and stuff basically, so that way she didn't have to live on the streets. And then she did end up living on the streets for a while, and then like eventually was found by the cops and brought back to the orphanage, and then the story that we know starts. And so it's basically almost like two different stories put into one, which is fine, but I also noticed that the way that it was written, this book was written almost for like a 6th grade reading level or lower. it was, and also the way that it was written made Annie feel a lot younger than she actually is. Because like she's supposed to be like, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old, right? But I don't know, in this the way that she's written in the book makes it feel like she's like, you know, 7 or 8. You know, and like what 7 or 8-year-old is running away from an orphanage, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know Annie's like a free thinker, but even I don't think she would do that, you know? But that's kind of like the main qualm that I have about it. But it is an interesting read if you want more backstory on like how the orphans were treated by Miss Hannigan, and specifically how Annie was treated, and more about like some of the characters in the story as well. Cause like we learn like you can infer from like watching the movie or the musical that like basically Miss Hannigan had the girls work in like a sweatshop, you know what I mean? Like making dresses and stuff like that, cause there's like sewing machines around, you know? Like there's like an entire sewing room filled with like fabric and sewing machines and everything. But like it's kind of something you have to guess that's happening, which I actually didn't realize that's what that was until I read the book. Cause you know like it talks about like Miss Hannigan using the girls as you know, sweatshop workers basically, to like make dresses so she can sell them and make money, you know, because like this is the Great Depression, right? Everybody's trying to make money somehow, you know, and like even if you sell a dress for like 50 cents, if you can make it for 25, you're still making a profit. I don't remember exactly what they said the pricing was on them, but like this story takes place in the 1920s. Everybody's trying to make money somehow. You know, it's like Miss Hannigan may be the head of an orphanage, but that doesn't necessarily mean it pays very well. You get a certain amount of money from the state, but it's not, you know, glamorous, right? It's not like you can, like, you know, get a mansion or something, but, and then I don't exactly remember what the original ending of the musical is. I just know that the ending in the 1982 movie is different because they wanted to give it that Hollywood ending, you know, as movies do. But you know, in the book, it kind of feels like they just wrapped it up and then like tied it into a neat little bow. It's like, here you go, it's done. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing left to like think about. Like it's like the book's done and it's just like done. You're just like, all good. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, those are the 3 books that I read last year. I hope you enjoyed this video of me just like spewing at the camera. And I hope you guys will tune in next year for when I make another one of these videos, hopefully, if I don't forget. Hopefully it'll actually be closer to the new year by when I make that one. This one I had to wait until, I guess this is February 1st when I'm filming this. And the reason why I waited so long to make it was because I lost the SD card for this camera and had to buy a new one. So, but yeah, I hope you guys will join me for this video next year, and I hope that if any of these books sound interesting to you, I hope you go out and read them. You know, you can pick them up at Target, Amazon, whatever. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Peace.